So we're going to make beef stew in the Instant Pot. This is the new 8-quart that we got. We used to have a 6, and with a big family we now have 8 people in the family, although the youngest is still not eating food from this. We had to upgrade. Even with 6 people in your family, you probably want the bigger one. So beef, I usually do about 1.5 kilo, which is about 3.3 pounds. These are fresh bay leaves, relatively fresh, they're really good. 2 large onions, healthy amount of butter, about that much potatoes. I think I have 5 medium to large in the recipe, but a lot of these are small. So 5 large carrots, 2 large parsnip, rosemary. I prefer to have, I normally like to grind it up in the pestle and mortar, but we haven't located that yet from unpacking from our move. Thyme leaves. This is a rutabaga. It's a cross between a turnip and I think broccoli, oddly enough. I prefer to have 2 medium-sized turnips, which are about the same amount. Rutabaga is not as flavorful, but they didn't have turnip. And Worcestershire sauce, salt, pepper, and Instant Pot. So I'm going to cut all that up and show you what it looks like in the bowls before we throw it in the pot. Oh yeah, yes, and the beef is sirloin tip, which is the bad sirloin, or the sirloin that's suitable for stewing and that sort of thing. Top sirloin is the high quality steaks. If you made steaks out of this, you wouldn't be very happy. This could be fattier for my liking. I got this one, has a fair bit of fat. And sirloin tip can be a lean cut, it can be a fatty cut, depending on the animal. So I put it in the freezer for about an hour beforehand, and it firms it up and makes it a little bit nicer to cut if it's just firmed up a little bit from that. Alright, here's the veg all cut up. There's my rutabaga in the middle, parsnip, mostly buried, carrot. The potato is probably around the same amount as the carrot. There's my 2 onions. The beef is just come out of the freezer. It's firm but still very malleable. It'll be easier to cut now. I think it was in there about an hour and a half. So I'll chop that up, cube it up, and give you one more shot before we go into the pot. Alright, there we are. We got the beef all cut up. You can hear the 2-year-old howling in the background. I got a shadow there. There we go. I'll get rid of my shadow. Beef, about 1.7 kilos. That was about 7 potatoes, 5 large carrots, 2 large parsnip, and 1 good sized rutabaga, and my spices and stuff back there. Now I'm going to put some butter on saute mode with the onions, get those nice and sauteed up really nice in there, and then throw the beef in and give it a good cook before I start throwing everything else in. Alright, I got the 8-quart Duo Plus, and right there just hit the saute button, and it'll saute for 30 minutes. So when it's done of its timer, that's when I know it's time to start loading everything up. I normally like a piece of beef with a lot of fat along one side, and I trim it and chop it up really fine. This is quite a small amount. Normally I like to have, that's maybe a tablespoon. Normally I'd like to have 5 or 6 times that amount. Throw it in here, and I've got the Worcestershire sauce in there right now. Fry that up in there with the beef fat for a few minutes before adding the beef. Alright, we'll cook that up a bit. Alright, my salt and pepper and bouillon cubes are in there. I just added the bay leaves. Not really going to stir those and the thyme and rosemary until I add a little bit of water. Actually, I should have added those last, but they're in there now, so it doesn't matter. So it's 2 beef bouillon cubes, 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of pepper this time. I did 1.5 last time. 50 milliliters Worcestershire sauce, 3 tablespoons of rosemary dried, 3 tablespoons of dried thyme. Now I've got a total cup of water. I'm going to add about a half cup of that right now. And then the other half after the veg and everything goes in there. Just enough to wet that and stir it up. And then I'm going to start adding veg. I normally have the hardest veg first. So that's these guys here, the carrots, the whatever I call that one, rutabaga, and the parsnips. Add those in, stirring as I go along. It's almost all stirred in, and now it's time to add the potatoes. You see we're getting pretty close to full here, but the potatoes aren't a huge amount. Now I want to figure out how much more water to add. I go down the side and try to figure out where the level is and use that to judge. This looks like it's going to easily take the whole rest of the cup, and possibly, yeah, I'd say a half cup more because there's more veg than I've put in here in the past. So I'm going to get that now. And the thing is, I'll keep a record of this. The last 3 stews I made, I just got back into making Instant Pot stews. Last 3 ones I made, I kept really good records, and I tweak it as I go along. So exactly how much of everything I put in, I keep a record. And now I've got it just about to where it's going to be perfect. And look at that, we're up to the max fill level there, just a hair over it, which experience tells me is fine for this type of meal. That's going to be awesome. Once that saute mode is done, I'm going to start it up on stew mode. And now I just hit meat stew. Oh, it's still going actually, it's still on saute. So I'm going to just cancel. And now I'll hit meat stew. And see, that's preset to 35. Everything else takes care of itself. That's how simple it is. Load it up, hit your 1 button, and then you're done. Alright, it went from on to the timer. That, you know, it's then gotten up to pressure. Once it, whoops, what's that mean? It was up to pressure. It went from on to 35. Now it should count down to 0. I'm not sure what that little singing was just now though. Alright, it's counting up for 11 minutes now. It'll keep it on warm mode, so I'm going to actually cancel it to let it naturally come down to pressure. So now it's off, and it's probably going to take 20 minutes to half an hour before I can open it with letting it naturally release. Alright, I actually waited 20 minutes and then I popped the pressure on. I should have videoed that. These new songs the new one plays are kind of kooky. Whoops, what did I do wrong? There we go. So first look, woo! Gonna need to give it a stir. It's looking a little bit brothy there, but once you stir it, it thickens a little. Hold on. Alright, I gave it a good stir. It is still a slight bit brothy, and I'll put that in my notes that I added that extra half cup of water that you saw me add, and I probably should have only added maybe a quarter, but this is going to be really awesome anyway. That is gorgeous looking stew. Oh my gosh, and the beef, the sirloin tip is the stewy, harder muscle from the leg, not the sirloin you make steaks which comes from the bum. So it's not falling apart like my last 2 stews, and that's going to be still very tender though, and that's just gorgeous stew. Check that out. So about halfway through the pot, and you can see the gravy has come up really well on it, just from mainly pieces of potato breaking off and breaking up into little wee chunks, so it's really nice now. And I put them in these. They're 750 ml from IKEA. You can also get glass ones if you prefer glass. Glass ones are a little more expensive, but you put the lid on, pop that in either fridge or the freezer, and you got a perfect lunch for like take to work or whatever. They're really good. From frozen, about 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes in the microwave. From not frozen, about 3.